copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. No copyright infringement intended. All rights belong to their respective owners.
This is War Cry. We're on the wall crying out for our children, our communities, our schools, our churches, our families. This is War Cry. Welcome to our reality. Gun violence, Chicago, Philly, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, just to name a few. Our black children are dying day by day. This is War Cry. Police brutality. Hands up! Don't move. I can't breathe. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter to Christ. This is War Cry. Drugs, rape, mass shooting, school violence. This is War Cry. Galvanizing people to pray for our children and to take action. Let's march on Washington. We want prayer back in school. This is War Cry. Cameras, memorials in every corner in our neighborhood. Who died this weekend? Oh no, not Miss Martha's grandson. This is War Cry. He was only 16. His brother died last year. He was only 13. This is War Cry. We the people. We're the elected officials. This is War Cry. We need the church. Where's the church? Only on Sundays. Get to the streets, church. We need you out there. This is War Cry. Girl, be gone. Boy, be gone. Mothers crying. Fathers being locked up. Welcome to our reality. Identity crisis. This is War Cry. Oh, they're trying to remove our history off the textbook. Oh, critical race theory? It makes them feel bad. It's our reality. Fake reality shows. We want the real truth. Stay woke. This is War Cry. HBCUs under attack. This is War Cry. Equal pay for what we do. We want a reparation. This is War Cry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Wait a minute. Is that somebody else they're burying that looks like us? Only 12. This is War Cry. Let us come together and pray for our young people, pray for our communities, pray for our schools, pray for our churches, pray that the government gives us what we need, a fair opportunity. This is War Cry, home of the land, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's free? Our men are locked up. This is War Cry. Hashtag mothers against gang violence. Hashtag fathers who love their sons. Hashtag what would Jesus do? This is War Cry.
I know who goes before me. I know who stays behind.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another broadcast of War Cry for our children. If we don't speak up, who will? We welcome you today on this 7th day of July, and we are excited about our show. And what is our show about? War Cry for our children. We fight a battle for our children. We fight a battle for our communities. We fight a battle for our churches. We fight a battle for our government. We fight a battle for our school systems. We fight a battle. And it's time that the church moves up and communities pull back together and we collectively join together for this fight. This is War Cry for our children, and we're glad that you decided to select us to listen to today. We got a great set of guests here, and we're going to jump into the conversation. But before we do that, I want to let you know that War Cry not only talks the talk, but we walk the walk. If you go to our website, you can purchase a shirt. And if you don't have the money, don't even worry about it. It says, I am praying for our children. Put prayer back into school. You know what the main requirement is that's greater than the money? That you select the school to pray for. You select the school district to pray for. You put on the shirt and you stand outside in front of the school district or in front of the school and you begin to pray for our young people. See, we became too lax on the job. We've left our young people unguarded and uncovered. And it's time for us to take our rightly position as people of God to move out of our comfort zones and to go out. The shirts are red with white letters. We have some white with red letters. All you have to do is hit me up on my War Cry website, which is War Cry for Our Children. All you got to do is call me text me your size, the school district, and your mailing address is warcry.children@gmail.com. And if you don't want to do that, you can text me at the phone number 347-426-5302, or you can contact our radio broadcast station and let them know. We need to let the world know it's more of us than it is them. And we need to let our children know that we are standing in the gap for them. Now, I know we've been on prayer lines. I know we're on Zoom. But guess what? Majority of the time we're on prayer lines or Zoom, our young people are not there. So therefore, they don't even know what the church is doing. And they're not in the church. They're on the outside. So guess what? It's time for us to go where the masses are. Remember, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Will you be a laborer or will you just stand back? Are you scared? You know what happens to scared folks? Just like what's happening now. We have the highest rate of incarceration. We're scared. We have affirmative action that has been voted down. We're scared. We got same-sex marriages that's voted. We're scared. We got the enemy telling our kids they don't have any worth, killing themselves. We're scared. We have dysfunctional families. We're scared. We have a division in the churches. We're scared. So it's time for us to grow up. Well, enough said. This is War Cry for Our Children, and we're going to go straight into our conversation about being woke and staying woke. Okay, I'm going to let our host introduce themselves to you. Pastor, you go first. Pastor, introduce yourself, followed by Dr. Johnson. And tell us a little something about yourself.
I'm Pastor Gene Robbins of Rescue Church of Christ, Jamaica, Queens, New York. I'm beginning my third year as the pastor here. I grew up in this neighborhood, and now I find myself pastor of a church, that something I never thought I would do. And because of that, I am trying to reach out to the young men in my neighborhood, because I know some of the things that they go through. That's briefly.
Now, Pastor, let me ask you a question. You say you grew up in your neighborhood, and that's South Jamaica?
That's correct.
You grew up in your neighborhood. Now, has it changed from the time that you were growing up to now? Tell us about some of the changes you've seen, especially with our youth.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Dating myself, when I grew up, there was a big drug, and it was this area, South Jamaica, was probably one of the major places where they said it was a crack epidemic and there was a drug epidemic and things of that nature. And unfortunately, what you watched basically almost an entire generation be affected by that particular drug, right? And it wasn't that someone came and saved us per se. It was that the drug decimated the community to a point where people began to say it to themselves, it's not worth it, and began to turn away from it. And since then, what's happened is what was once a predominantly Black community has now transitioned to a Black and Latino community. And now I'm beginning to see gentrification begin to happen to the community as they begin to pour money into Jamaica Avenue. But the problem I have is you're pouring that money in, but you're not really helping the people in the community. What you're trying to do is push them out. So that's what's going on now. And that's what I see. And so, you have some churches around that have they have some um, buildings that have been created for the elderly, and I think that that's a great and wonderful thing. But you don't see anything really being done with the youth, unfortunately. So that's what I
Okay,
that's
great.
what I see going on. I see gentrification happening. The same thing that happened in Brooklyn, I see that beginning to happen here. So
And let me
trying
tell you
to reach out.
something. Wherever we see gentrification happening, we see safety and we see we being pushed out. We see
Mhm.
more police is coming in, and we see that we're being outpriced and pushed out.
Yes,
Period.
that's exactly
Because
what's happening.
that's what happened. And they began to redline our neighborhoods. Come on, let's just talk about it. They redline our communities, they outprice the property, and they push us out. And that once unsafe area is so flooded with police that you have one on every block. You don't have liquor stores no more, you have wineries. I go into Brooklyn, the liquor stores are gone. You have a wineries with people sitting on the outside. I'm like, Fulton Street don't even look like Fulton Street anymore.
Right.
Because they changed the whole environment. Why? Because they want to keep their people safe. And our people, we become homeless because the areas they put us in are still not good areas, and they're still going to be outpriced. They rezone us, they redline us, and eventually we have no choice but to leave. And that's how sometimes homelessness happens. Homelessness don't come just happen when a person wakes up in the morning and say, "Oh, I'm homeless." It usually happens because they've been out. People have been outpriced out of their living environment, and they can't find apartments that fit within their budgets. So guess what? They resort to the streets or to the shelters. How do you feel about that statement, Pastor Jean?
I think that that's actually a true statement. But we also have something to bear in that sometimes we have property as Black people, right? And then we sell it to the highest bidder and don't think about what the legacy is going forward. And we just get our money and we leave, right?
And we
And
leave.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? If you own property as a African American person in especially in this area, if they're going to offer you $500,000 for it or $1 million for it, guess what? In 2 or 3 years, you'll probably be three times that. So we have to begin to think strategically
Absolutely.
and hold on to the property that we have, right? And then the other thing is,
Absolutely.
how do you, New York in general, right? Think about it. The cost of living here, rent, is so high. It's taking up 75% of people's salary. So now they can't live, right? So you have a whole set of young people who are coming up who are like, I can't live here. I gotta move, right? I gotta get out of here because I can't even afford an apartment here, right? So it's things like that we have to think about. Like how are we making space for the young ones coming up who do want to stay and who do want to try to help, right? Who want to start families and things of that nature. It's multifaceted, the problems that we have, right? There's no single answer.
Yes.
But we have to
Yes,
think about
that's
all
why
the
the churches need to work together. That's why as a church, we need to work together. The church across the street needs to work with you. The church down the corner needs to work with you. This is a group problem. We are
right.
all connected together. Dr. Johnson, jump right in with what you've heard. What do you think? What are your comments about?
Well, this is a reality that has been staged for a long time. It's nothing new. It's just something that's being recycled. Every area of New York City where it was once the white population and then the black population moved in. And then when the white population got a little upset about having to travel too far, then they want the area back.
Right.
So the federal government and our state governments, they're all in collusion with it. It's not just the real estate people. It's basically it begins at the top. We have always been looked at as being an occupied force, and we have always been looked at as people that are just in the way. We've always been looked at as people that we have to find something to do with them. That mindset has really destabilized the black community because we're all of a sudden we're in a new form of slavery where we have to be looked upon as being somebody that's going to be dispatched wherever needed And then if we don't need them, we're going to lock them up. So we have become an endangered species within our own communities. And it's really sad because our young people, they're looking, in confusion. Everybody wants to know, they got this big question in their mind. They said, why? Why are we being treated like this? What have we done? What is going to be the result of this? Am I going to live like this? Is this how I came to be born? Is this how I'm going to be died? To make me feel like I'm a second-class citizen for the rest of my life? Something is wrong. Because when I look at a white person, they look like second-class citizens to me. Something's wrong with them, but yet I'm to blame. So this is a crisis, a community crisis. And I don't know if it begins with the communities. It definitely includes our churches and our police departments. I remember in
Absolutely.
2009, the Lord led me to do something that my former deacon had asked me to do before she went home to be with the Lord. Because in Harlem, the white folks had decided that we want to take Harlem back, and they took it back.
Yeah.
And the area where to be totally taken over. So I used to go to the political meetings that were held at Harlem Hospital, and I found out that the area where my church was, it was scheduled to be taken over, and they were going to do it very kindly and very subtly, where people would not even know it. They were going to use it with money. I found out at the state office building one day that the church where I grew up, that they paid $43,000 for it in 1940 when they bought the building. Right now, the value of the same church I grew up was worth close to 15 million. So someone told me, said the only way that your church could be saved is that it becomes a landmark. And that's what I did. It took me, I did it within 15 months, which would normally take 5 years, because I happened to know people who were in the Harlem area, and I knew some political activist people. They told me how to do it. And I basically did it on my own for the most part, where I was able to protect the church building by having it become a landmark. It was the first Pentecostal church in Harlem that was from a regular church building. It wasn't a storefront. It was a church building. It was a Presbyterian church. It was owned by the white Presbyterians who wanted to move out of Harlem when black people began to move in Harlem. So they sold a church building, a beautiful church, for $43,000. But now they want the church building back. So where were our people going to go? So I went and talked to my pastor. I talked to the deacons, and I told them what's going on. They looked at me and said, oh, they laughed. They said, no, I don't think so. We don't been here too long. And I went and got some documents to show them. I said, hey, do you see this here? I said, y'all ever heard of urban renewal?
And let me say something else, Dr. Johnson. Have you ever heard about intimate domain?
Yeah, eminent domain.
Eminent domain. That means that they can take anything at any time.
Yes, they
If
can.
it's for the goodness of the government.
Yes, it was.
And so that's what they did in Brooklyn. They took a lot of those brownstones in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. They forced our people to sell because they said it was for the benefit of, you know what else? The Barclays Center. See, the Barclays Center pushed a lot of us out. Mm-hmm. And pushed a lot of them in. You would not even recognize downtown Brooklyn anymore. And when the government wants something, the government can take it. I thank God that you even saved the church with making it a landmark, because millions of people don't do that. You know what they do, Dr. Johnson? They sell to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
They sell to the highest bidder because they want to move out, and they say, well, we're going to get a new church built up, and they don't think about the worth and the value of what the church stands for in that community. So they bypass that. And that's something that we have to fight for, and our churches have to fight for. And there are big churches in the areas where your church is too. Is that not true, Dr. Johnson?
Well, they were very successful because we lost two well-known black churches in the Harlem area. That was the Mount Moriah Baptist, and then you had the Gospel Temple Church of America. They are I
Mm.
don't know what happened, but these people or the members of that church, they sold to the white folks who wanted to buy the church. They turned churches
Mm.
into apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Right here.
Absolutely. Dr. Jean, Pastor Jean, you want to come in?
No, he's absolutely right. This is what's happening. And then as a pastor, I get a mail where they're asking me, "Do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Look at all the churches we've sold already, that we've helped." I'm like, "You're not really helping us. You're destroying us." But it's a concerted effort that they have. They're going after all the churches that they can,
Hmm.
and giving you examples of, "Oh, we sold this one for 5 million, and you can now take that money and go build a church someplace else." And it's just amazing how they're pushing this. They want to get rid of the churches in the community, because actually churches are bedrocks in communities, and they provide
Absolutely.
services for people in communities. See, I think we've everyone looks at this mega church thing, but churches are really local, and they provide so many services to the people in the community, right? But everybody wants to be big, everybody wants to be huge, everybody wants to be mega this and mega that, and don't really think about the people in the community themselves, those that are struggling.
Absolutely. And we're not servicing the people in the community because churches are supposed to be community oriented. We don't build churches and set them way out on Long Island when we have our congregations in Brownville. How are the people going to travel out there?
Right.
How are you going to get there? And that's one of the things about the mega churches that leave the communities and build way out. And are you going to have a church van to pick up these people every Sunday? Are you going to bring the youth to youth service on Friday? Are you going to bring the choir to choir practice on Tuesday? The people that made you, gave you the financial stability to move out, you leave them behind. And so these are things that we have to look at. And churches are going to have to connect together. We're going to have to move from denomination. If we're going to fight this war that we're fighting and save our children, we've got to connect together. We're one people under one God, under one nation, and we should connect together. Now, speaking about under one nation, I don't know if you guys heard about what Jill Scott, when she sung the American anthem, how she changed the words around to reflect who we are in the woke state. And it's been people screaming, saying, why did she change the word America? Has America been that good to us that we have we forgotten the treatment? Let's listen to Jill Scott.
19 years old. Ready? I'm 51 now, by the way. Oh, say, can you see by the blood in the streets that this place doesn't smile on you, colored child, whose blood built this land with sweat and their hands. But you'll die This is not the land of the free, but the home of the slave.
Now, we just heard Jill Scott. Before that, we was talking about how they want to push the church out. We also know that during the civil rights movement, the church was the first line of attack. They wanted to burn our churches, to tear our churches down. Also, we know that the church was the gathering place of where we gathered at to get ideas to go out into the streets to march for our rights. And here we see, or we talked about, the church being torn apart, being divided. It appears to me that a lot of us now are becoming woke. We're becoming woke with what they're doing with the churches. We're becoming woke with what they did with our inheritance. We're becoming woke with what they did to our people. We're becoming woke for how the guns are coming into our neighborhoods. We are woke now. Now, my question to you, Pastor, is she says, "Oh, say, can you see by the blood in the streets?" We in our neighborhoods, because of the poverty that we suffer from, we lose lives every day almost. Every day when we go through the streets and through some of our low-income housing areas, we see memorials where blood is down, mothers crying, guns, AR-15s. Do you think when she said, "Oh, say, can you see by the blood on the street," that she was lying? Do you think that she was making up a false truth, Pastor Jean?
No, I don't think she was making up a false truth. She was relaying her own experiences and the experiences of many Black people in this nation. So, I mean, no, she wasn't lying. Or no, but see what I think that what's going on when you see the Republicans talk about anti-woke and things of that nature is everyone's trying to take that word and make it mean what they want it to mean, and make it be a negative thing, and to scare people, scare non-Black people into thinking that these people are coming after you and everything that you've earned, but not taking the time to educate themselves to understand we're not coming after everything that you earn. We're just trying to be equal and get the things that we've earned that weren't given to us, right? But no, she's not.
Now, Pastor, why is it that, first of all, we need to talk about who we are in our churches? That's number one. Dr. Johnson, would you agree with that? That the church need to sit down and teach Black history in the inside of the church, to the church and to the youth. Dr. Johnson, would you agree with that? Dr. Johnson.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And based on
Okay, now hold it, Dr. Johnson. So why is it that we only teach Black history in February?
because we have been subjugated and alienated to think that we only supposed to look at our history once a year, and it's only the beginning from 1619. But Black history is much more extensive than this. Black history begins in the Bible.
And the church needs to teach our young people, especially those that are out there killing each other, those young girls that are walking up and down the block selling their bodies and don't know their worth. If the church will come outside the walls and begin to share this information of who we are as a people, I think we can work on building integrity again among our young people. Pastor, what do you think about that?
Well, my church has a cultural committee. We teach Black history every month, number one. So that's something that we do. The thing it is that we just make sure that God is number one, right? But we teach Black history every month. It's something that has to be done because it's not being taught in schools anymore. and they only relegate it to one person, and that's Dr. King, right? They only want you to talk about, and they don't even understand that the reason he was killed was because he began to go against the establishment and come and say we need to take care of poor people, right? So Black history does need to be taught in the churches because it's not being taught in schools anymore. I certainly agree with that.
And Black history needs to be taught from a perspective of who we are in the Bible.
Sure.
Our history started in the Bible. The Garden of Eden was in Africa. And a lot of us, our young Black boys and Black girls, they don't find their identity in Christ. They have sought their identity outside of the Word of God because they never seen themselves in relationship to a white Jesus that was hanging on the wall. Pastor, at you, I said something then. A
I'm
white
sorry, what was that?
Jesus. I said, how do
Yeah.
you feel about when our kids are being taught about a white Jesus instead of a Jesus that looks like us? See, that's the real
Yeah.
deal. Our kids from slavery made everybody white that was right. So we have this inside ability to think, oh, even our athletes that go out, they don't want a Black woman, they want a white woman. And I don't care as Tiger Woods, Dr. Johnson, who did Tiger Woods get for his wife? She was what?
A poor white woman who was just a maid in the hotel. Didn't even have a high school diploma. And
And
she
he
wasn't even
made
a
her a
citizen.
millionaire.
And she
Yes, he
wasn't
did.
even a citizen of the United States.
So we need to start teaching our young men and rescue. Pastor Jean, I realize you have a good men's program, but your program needs to be incorporated into other churches. And we need to collectively work together, just not for the men, just not for the boys, but also for the young ladies as well, and teach Black history because Eve was Black. Okay, but Bathsheba, her name means Black woman. If we really want to know the truth, Moses married Keturah. So even if they tried to say that none of these people were Black, Moses' wife came from Ethiopia.
Yes, she did.
So we need to start teaching that we played a very prominent role in the Word of God, and God valued us. See, our kids are lacking value, and they don't understand why this world hates them. And the majority of Black boys that I met, they got this anger problem that they're dealing with. Dr. Johnson, what's this anger going on, this trauma that's been passed down, the unworthiness that have made us kill each other? Dr. Johnson, what is this trauma in our blood system?
It's a combination of self-hatred, depression, low self-esteem, and no identity. And our young people, they can't handle that no more. See, our generation and the generation before, we adapted to it because we were still in that post-slavery mentality. Not today. They're not having that. And I don't blame them. And they first thing, and I'm glad you brought up the point about, you talk about Moses with his Black wives. Moses was jet black himself. People don't realize that. But when you look at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were Black people from the city of Ur, which was in Mesopotamia. They are the line of Shem. They are Black people. The whole 95% of the Black presidents is all in the Bible. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Isaiah in the scriptures, and even in the New Testament,
Apostle
in the book
Paul.
of Acts.
Apostle Paul.
He's a Black man. He was mistaken
Apostle
for
Paul.
being an Egyptian. Now you know what the Egyptians look like now. Imagine what it looked like 2,000 years ago before they started intermarrying with the Greeks and the Romans. They were very dark people. The gospel that our preachers have been preaching every Sunday about what the apostles said, what the prophets were. They were all Black people. I don't know if you look at the book of Jeremiah, he says over 17 times he describes himself, I am as black as the ground, as dark as the midnight night.
And we know what
Isaiah,
Solomon was.
we
Solomon
know he
says
was
it.
black. And listen, Solomon was good and black, and so was his daddy, David. David was dark, had a dark red. Okay, he wasn't
So
white.
we need, yes, we need, because guess what? The majority of our black people, if you ask them, where are you from? I'm from South Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. I'm from Tennessee. I'm from Georgia. But you ask our white brothers and sisters, they say, I'm from Ireland. I'm from Scotland. I'm from
Right.
England. I'm from Australia. I'm from Russia, because they relate back to their roots. We have no identification in where we came from. That has been one of the traumas that have came down through generations, is we've always felt misplaced. And until we go back and say, you have a place in history. See, we tell stories, but we don't have stories. We have a history. And we've got to put our history right. We've been reading their history. Now it's time for our history. Our black men need to know your worth. You were a king. Your ancestors were proud people. You came from a line of fighters. You have intelligence. You are creative. You can design. You can conquer. But yet still, you can do more than pick up a gun and kill your brother who has
Absolutely.
not did anything to you. You can do more than pick up a gun. You can begin to love this God. Now, when we speak from the biblical end, we don't have to preach that Jesus is black, but we can preach that Jesus is a part of us, because he's a part of every race. He's for all mankind, but we don't preach that. But we preach we don't have any identity in him. He's white. So we need to preach. And if we told the truth, the person who painted Jesus, Michelangelo, I don't want to
Yeah.
get into that. That
Yeah, he
picture
was
came
paint.
down through history.
That's right. That's right. That wasn't the
So
picture of Jesus. That was
that's the
Michelangelo.
history we need to tell them. That this twerking and stuff you're doing, even though I don't like this twerking, guess what? That was in your African heritage, sister. That was part of the African dances that came down through your bloodline. But we need to teach them in decency and honor. We have some questions on the line right here. What is the first question? How do we begin to take, wait a minute, wait. How do we begin to take accountability for the role we ourselves played and continue to play in our own oppression? I'm going to put that at you first. I want you to answer that question first, Pastor, then you, Dr. Gregory.
How do we continue to take accountability? First of all, you got to look at your own family structure, right? To destroy a nation, you destroy a family bit by bit, right? So you have a husband and a wife, and you have children. Husband and a wife have responsibility for their children. And I know they say it takes a village to raise people, but guess what? I'm responsible for my child, and I'm going to spend time with them. Number one, give them an understanding of who God is, and that, like she said, God is in you, right? Number two, understand your history. Understand that they're not going to teach you when you go to school about the things that we have gone through. That's my responsibility, right? To get into their head, the things that they need to know, to teach them the things that they need to know. Because if I destroy the family, I destroy the nation. If I bring the family back together, right? Family, husband, wife, children. Not husband, not wife. I'm sorry. Anyone gets upset about that.
That's right.
But it's
That's right.
husband, wife, and
But
children.
hey, it's the truth. You're not making it up. It's in the Bible. That's what the Bible says. So if they get upset about it, they need to go to the throne of grace and deal with it.
Right.
That's what
So
you did. But let me say this, Pastor. I got to come in because the
yeah,
church has to take responsibility. Now, I'm not saying this is just something that happened. If there are men in our churches who have not taken responsibilities for their families, the pastors need to address that situation.
Oh,
period.
absolutely.
And there are men sitting in our congregations, maybe not you, that don't pay child support, that have walked away from their families, that don't have a relationship with their kids, but they say they have a relationship with Jesus. What I'm here to tell you, if you don't have a relationship with your family, how can you have a relationship with Jesus? Now I understand the dysfunctionality that these women do. I'm a woman, and how we get mad at men and try to keep the children. But you should do everything you can to be a man or a father for that child. What do you think about that, Pastor?
No, I think that's absolutely correct. Like that's what I was going at. It's like accountability for your family. And yes, I understand there's some dysfunction sometimes, but you can't give up on your family, on the thing that you have created,
And
because
and
that puts a
churches
sense
need to
of,
preach that.
yes, and that puts it messes up the child more than it messes up anybody else, right? So often you have
Dysfunctional
kids.
generation.
Yeah, and it affects a generation. It affects the next generation. They need both the mother and the father to pour into them so that they know their worth, and that the society in general doesn't give them their worth. It's the mother and the father that gives them their worth, right? With
And
God, of course.
and and if there are children in our churches who don't have a mother, who don't have a father, men mentors, women mentors must be trained to stand in the gap. See, everybody can get the Bill Cosby type of family.
That's
So
right.
we need to stand in the gap for those that don't have it. Dr. Johnson, what do you think about what you've heard?
The way we begin accountability and the way that we give accountability to ourselves as a nation of people, we must teach from the beginning. A lot of our young people and a lot of our adults don't know our beginning. Many people don't realize that we are Hebrew. We are not African Americans. We are not just black people. We are the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's all in the Bible. It's in the book of Deuteronomy specifically. We must recognize that when we go to our Christian churches today, and then the pastors even teach this, that picture you see of Jesus, that ain't Jesus. That is Cesar Borgia. He is the son of Pope
The Pope.
Alexander the Sixth. Okay, that ain't Jesus. Jesus' real name was Yeshua Hamashai. Okay, and if we go to the beginning, let's go back to basics. Because see, we were destroyed from the root. The book of Deuteronomy tells us the beginning of slavery. It was prophesied by Moses. He said, because of your resistance and because you broke the covenant relationship. And I know that's a little heavy for some folks, but it's the truth. If we're going to get to the social aspects of it, we got to deal from the ancestral and spiritual aspects of it from the beginning. We are Hebrew. They don't like to hear that word. Our oppressors hate that we know that now. That is one thing that disturbs them on anything. We are the original Hebrews spoken of in the Bible. We are not just black people. We are the descendants of Shem. That's why it's so embarrassing when they want to call us anti-Semitic. We are Semitic. Abraham was a black
Absolutely.
man. Okay? Jesus was
And
a black
and
man.
the more we can identify with who we are, the more we can bring our young people back.
There we
Engineer,
go.
let's go to the next clip. Engineer, go to the next clip.
And now, here is Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu with his penetrating presentation of countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys.
There's no topic that concerns me more than the one on the conspiracy to destroy black boys. And the reason is when our little boys are in preschool and primary grades, they're very innocent and very enthusiastic about learning. But something happens to that, and we need to find out what that is. My younger son is on the cover of this particular book, and I would like for him to grow up to be a man. Like many of you already told me that you have sons and male students as well. Now, there's two parts of the conspiracy, volume 1, and this is volume 2. In volume 1, we raised 4 questions. First question is, when did the conspiracy start? Who is against black boys? Why is there a conspiracy against them? And what exactly is the conspiracy? That's in volume 1. In volume 2, we look at the relationships between mothers and their sons. That must be studied. We also must look at female teachers and black male students. That must also be studied. We must look at some case studies. In other words, many of us are doing a very good job developing black boys to be men. What is it that some of us are doing that others are not doing? And then last but not least, a program called the Rites of Passage into Manhood. See, it used to be we knew when black boys became men, but now many of us don't know when we're men. It's how much reefer we smoke, how much wine we drink, how many babies we make. Until black men spell it out to black boys what it means to be a man, this conspiracy will continue. But let's go back to volume 1. When did it start? And as we begin to look at that, I want to also share with you why we call it a conspiracy to destroy black boys. You see, contrary to belief at birth, there are more black boys born in the world than there are girls. It's close, but it's 1.03 black boys born in the world to 1.0 black girls. Hear me clearly. At birth, black boys outnumber black girls 1.03 to 1.0. A brief 18 years later, it is now 1.0 available, and that's the key word, available black men, to 1.8 available black women. Almost 2 adult women for every 1 adult man. Now, the only question that should be going through your minds right now is what happened? We keep raising the wrong question. We keep asking, why do black men hang on corners? Why do black men lack direction? Well, if you ask this question, you answer the question 18 to 30 years too late. It is not a conspiracy to destroy black men. It's a conspiracy to destroy black boys. If you destroy him as a boy, he'll never become a man. Not gonna look around the room and tell you know where are they. If they are not available to black women, where are they? Call the roll. In jail, there are 329,000 brothers in prison right now. 1 of every 4 brothers will go to prison. Where else? Or death. There's numerous ways that we die. There's homicide, suicide, drugs, war, high blood pressure, and the leading killer among black men, lung cancer. Our love for cigarettes, especially cool. Smoke them all day long, die the exact same way. Cool. Where else? We have prison, death. What else to make us unavailable to black women? Yes, homosexuality. As you said earlier, 1 of every 9 men in this country are homosexual. Where else? Yes.
Hospitalized, institutionalized.
Okay, so institutionalization, and there's not only in terms of hospitals, but also mental institutions. And of course, when they get released, many times being homeless. There's still one other large popular area. Thimby?
They marry white women.
Okay, interracial marriages. Now I want to pause there for a moment, because you would think if anybody is going to marry outside the race, it would be black women. You got 2 black women for every 1 black man. But as Thimby pointed out, it's exactly the opposite. There are 164,000 interracial marriages, of which 116,000 are brothers. That means 48,000 sisters. It's almost a 2-to-1 ratio of black men to black women marrying outside the race. But remember, as you said in the earlier workshop, if the definition of beauty is light skin, long hair, and blue eyes, why stop with Renee, the light-skinned sister? Why not get you the real thing? There's some serious problems here. And then black men tell me, I can't find a black woman to understand me. You mean out of 20 million black women, you can't find one to understand you? You don't need a white woman, you need a psychiatrist. But that's another workshop on relationships. But I just want to share with you, we got some very serious problems. But to tease this audience, black women are tired of being by themselves. And in the earlier issue of Essence magazine, the article said, guess who's coming to dinner now? Mm-hmm. Black women are tired of being by themselves. In other words, brothers, you can't have it both ways. You can't have 2 black women to choose from and still marry a white woman. You can't have it both ways. Black women are tired of being by themselves. Now, that's with regards to the stats, why we wrote the book, because we saw the shortage of black men. But what we want to begin to find out is, when did it start? You see, it's called the 4th grade syndrome. Studies show that black boys may be the best students in the country up until the 4th grade. So we wanted to find out what your son, a male student, was doing at the beginning of the 3rd grade, then at the end of the 7th grade, and then measure the progress. Let me give you 3 examples. We had a little boy 5 years ago on an Alva reading test score at the 98th percentile in the country. In other words, a walking genius. That means only 2% male, female, white, or black had a higher score than he at the beginning of the 3rd grade. At the end of 7th grade, the same boy now drops down to the 35th percentile. Engineer potential here, pimp or pusher now. Scores should have improved 5 years. Instead, they only improved 1.3. Two more examples. We had a little boy at the 92nd percentile. He dropped down to the 24th percentile, and his scores only improved 2.1. But let me give you the average example. We had a little boy at the 63rd percentile. He dropped down to the 4th percentile, and his scores didn't improve a year, a month, a week, not even a day. There are 3 critical stages in Black boys' development: infancy to 9, 9 to 13, and 13 to 18. You see, it's easy to see the negative behavior here when he's already dropped out, laid up on some street corner lacking direction. It's more difficult to see it around 9 years of age, when they begin to sit further in the back of the class, when they begin to ask less questions, when their ball becomes more important in their book, when they begin to cheat on their tests. We appeal to you to turn your sons and male students on early. Teach them how to read early. Teach them the beauty of being Black and believing in God
engineer.
early.
Okay, engineer, let's go back to this. Let's go back. Now, woo! We heard it from the professional. What is now? This is the type of information that need to be taught to our people, so we can get an understanding of what's happening. Back at you, Dr. Jean. What did you think about the video, Pastor?
Me?
What did you think? Yeah,
it's on point. It's on point. Actually, I need to get that video. That's what I thought about it.
I'll send it to you. All right, I'll send it to you. This, because go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That's exactly some of those same things, or the same things as I've discussed with the young men in our program. So it would be good to have someone else say it. And that's old. That's like from what, the 70s, 80s?
Yes.
That video?
Yes, late 80s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It would be good to have someone reiterate what you say to someone, so they don't think you're just coming out of the,
And this is what the church should have been teaching this a long time ago. The conspiracy that's happening with our Black boys. If they would have taught it and let everyone know 25 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be dealing with so much stuff here. That's why I say the church is not on point with what they should be doing in our community. Dr. Johnson, I don't want to go off no more.
Well, I can understand your feelings, sister, and I feel the same way. But look, when this video was made, when Dr. Kwanzaa, because he was a very good friend of one of my mentors, Dr. Francis Cresswell, and he came to Harlem Hospital in 1989, and he looked so worn and so weary. When he made that video in 1979, when it came out, he was one of the first Black psychologists, social workers who really dealt with this. They attacked the oppressors, attacked him with everything they had. They tried to take his license. They tried to take his house. They tried to destroy his family, because this was one of the first Black professionals that spoke the truth about what is going on. And the oppressors, or the white folks, you want to call them, they went out of their minds. They never wanted to kill a Black man so much when they wanted to kill Dr. Kwanzaa. Yes, and he was shunned, and a lot of Black people in politics were threatened not to invite him to speak at any of your functions, because we would either not support you, we would take the money away we're sending you. Oh, they were very upset behind it, because you see, he put out some information that could not be challenged, could not be disputed.
And disputed.
He had statistics to prove it. And what's so sad about it is that for a long time, he was kind of quieted down. The last person to try to help him and build him up, I know specifically in the Harlem area, was the Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yes, and even he got threatened. He was the last one. This young man was brilliant.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
And when he tried to promote his work, they just did everything they could to just dissuade him. They even tried to say that he was crazy, that he had a nervous breakdown, that he didn't know what he was talking about. All they tried to tear his reputation up because he spoke the truth. But he didn't care.
Yes.
He was a fighter.
He was a fighter. And guess what? He was one of the people who came up with a system on how we could break the school to prison pipeline. See, if we apply the techniques that he's using and start looking at our kids, he said, what happens between the 3rd grade and the 7th grade? What happens really in the 4th grade I've read his 2nd book, his 1st book. If you look at the dynamics of what he's teaching, and he teaches about how can a white teacher relate to a black young boy that's at home seeing his mama getting beat up by his dad, and he's coming in and he's expressing emotional trauma, not because he's mentally ill, but because he's been emotionally traumatized at home. But now you stereotype this kid and then you kick him to the side. And see, how can a white teacher from the suburbs who has not studied the ethnicity of our people come and teach in our urban schools and be expected to understand who we are? Dr. Gray, Pastor, what do you think about that? Do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree, actually. One of the things that I had that I can say probably affected me the most is I had Black teachers who wouldn't go for a lot of this stuff, right? So, like I said, I grew up in the neighborhood, PS40, IS8, August Martin High School. And I had Black teachers in my lower grades that wouldn't go for that, right? You had to achieve, you had to do good. They wouldn't fall for the stuff. Now, a Black person goes to a school in a white suburb, and the immediate thing that a white person says is, oh, they're disadvantaged, oh, they can't do this, and they start tagging them and putting them and saying they can't. And I'm just like, it's just crazy when you think about it, where when I went to school with Black teachers, it was always, yeah, you can, and you better. I'm not allowing this to continue. So, yeah, like I said, that's it's so funny, right? We have the solutions to all of our problems. It's just that we don't disseminate the information enough, right? In enough places. Yes. That, like, what you just showed. I've heard of this, and I don't know why I never saw that video. So it's like the solutions are there. We just need to disseminate it widely, right? But what the doctor was saying is, what they do is what they always do. They marginalize the person who has the information, and they make his life miserable. And you'll find throughout history, whenever someone steps up like that, he's targeted for destruction, right? But you can't destroy something when it's spread out all over the place, right? When it's the information is given, it's called a distributed system in engineering, right? It's not coming from one person, but it's coming from several different areas. So yeah, you destroy it one place, but you haven't destroyed it at another place because it's distributed out wide, right? So that's the thing. You have to distribute this information to as many people as possible, and to many churches as possible. And they have to be willing to share the information, right? So that when you go destroy one church, guess what? There's 10 or 20, 30 other ones that are teaching and showing the same things. So you're never going to be able to squash
Absolutely. It. And see, that's what War Cry is about. We're out to give information out so we can unite everyone together. We have to be able to find a solution, and we have to work the solution and work the methods that we have. We've already got the answers, but we got to work it. And the church must take the leadership role in doing that, because we galvanize more people besides schools than anyone else. This is War Cry. We're broadcasting from New York. We have a question. Are we woke? Are we woke? And if we are, we need to work at our wokeness. We're broadcasting from New York, all the way from Queens, and we've had such an engaging conversation. And there's many more conversations that need to take place, especially when it comes to affirmative action. We all know what has happened with that, and we're going to get into that discussion again. But I want to thank our hosts, our other co-hosts, our guests. Thank you. Now, one word, Dr. Jean, and one word, Dr. Johnson, that you'd like to leave our audience with. One word. What one word would you like, based on the show, would you like to leave our audience with? Dr. Gregory Johnson.
Struggle.
One word. Struggle. Okay. Struggle. Okay. That Pastor Jean, one word.
Fight.
Fight. And one word that I want to leave is that we have to be unified together. Period. Not look like we're unified on Sunday, but really be unified, cross over denominations, and realize that our children's lives are at stake. This is War Cry. Join us next week for another exciting program. We're not politically correct, but we are Christ correct. And we're going to say those things that your pastors may not be saying, but your pastors need to hear. War Cry. Everybody, come on, say it, Doctor. Say it, Pastor Jean.
War cry.
Say it, Dr. Johnson. War cry. War cry for our children. We want our children to survive. War cry. War cry for our children and our communities. We shall fight and Christ shall win. We shall fight and Christ shall win. Back at you, engineer. This is War Cry. We're on the wall crying out for our children, our communities, our schools, our churches, our families. This is War Cry. Welcome to our reality. Gun violence, Chicago, Philly, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, just to name a few. Our black children are dying day by day. This is War Cry. Police brutality. Hands up! Don't move. I can't breathe. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter to Christ. This is War Cry. Drugs, rape, mass shootings, school violence. This is War Cry. Galvanizing people to pray for our children and to take action. Let's march on Washington. We want prayer back in school. This is War Cry. Candles, memorials in every corner in our neighborhood. Who died this weekend? Oh no, not Miss Martha's grandson. This is War Cry. He was only 16. His brother died last year. He was only 13. This is War Cry. We the people. We're the elected officials. This is War Cry. We need the church. Where's the church? Only on Sundays. Get to the streets, church. We need you out there. This is War Cry. Girl, be gone. Boy, be gone. Mothers crying. Fathers being locked up. Welcome to our reality. Identity crisis. This is War Cry. Oh, they're trying to remove our history off the textbook. Oh, critical race theory? It makes them feel bad. It's our reality. Fake reality shows. We want the real truth. Stay woke. This is War Cry. HBCUs under attack. This is War Cry. Equal pay for what we do. We want a reparation. This is War Cry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Wait a minute. Is that somebody else they're burying that looks like us? Only 12. This is War Cry. Oh, let us come together and pray for our young people, pray for our communities, pray for our schools, pray for our churches, pray that the government gives us what we need, a fair opportunity. This is War Cry, home of the land, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's free? Our men are locked up. This is War Cry. Hashtag mothers against gang violence. Hashtag fathers who love their sons. Hashtag what would Jesus do? This is War Cry.